All right, so nice rainy day here, folks. Welcome back again to Growing Up Alien. And today we have himself, Eeka, here. Some people can probably see him. Yeah. Actually, you should try to see him. He's like, yes, try to see. It's easier if I do it on the bed because he has a place to sit. So yeah, we have some questions from our friends. He says literally, yes, literally, you know who they are, and when they ask the questions, yes, oh yes. So, actually, I want to explain. I'm going to use, I did use that for the thumbnail. So Eco was able to leave the base and go down into Santa Monica, and he sat and had a coffee, which is something I would never do, but whatever. And he used. Um, so when we were doing the interviews with folks, having him interview people, which we could do again, actually. I had him pretend he was a investigative journalist like Linda Moulton Howe. Linda Moulton. And he had like glasses. So he wore these, costume glasses to go into town. So yeah, they fit right in. You'd never know. Especially I think in California it's a little more, more blendy than it would be in some spots, I suppose. But anyway, like yeah, if you lived in a small town maybe and people know everybody and somebody new shows up, that might be a little bit more obvious than being somewhere where you can just kind of fade in with the crowd, so to speak. So he says hi to everybody. I'm going to open up with questions rather than, blah, blah for no reason here. So the first question, how many star seeds will have physical contact in 2025? Well, I don't know the answer to that question. And what I just mentioned there about possibilities has a lot to do with everyone on a personal level, your region, your contact history, what's going on, as we say, upstairs, the position that the partner, family member has, how much freedom they have, what they are allowed to do, what they are not allowed to do, who is behind the manifestation of the plans. We're not free to do whatever we want any more than sometimes you feel that you're not free to do whatever you want due to different reasons. Maybe the earth reasons would be for finances, for your work, for your family, for the different commitments that you have, and for the literal ability for you to move and do different things. So it's similar for many of your family upstairs. So he uses the term like we read it upstairs. So I can't answer how many people will have contact in 2025. Some people have already had contact. Don't dismiss the work that you do when you go in the astral form. I know that has been degraded as an experience here. You aren't having experiences as a parlor game. You aren't having experiences to put on a show. These experiences that you have are very individual based, interrupting Rooster. They're for you. Whether you choose to share them or not is a personal decision. But bear in mind that for most people, not all, some people will have himself. Let's go back to where we were. Um, some people will have contact with stipulations that they are meant to be, as we are here now, used for information purposes. None of these contact experiences are intended to be used if they are benevolent for acts of showmanship. This needs to be understood. The Galactic Federation of Worlds, other federations, and other councils do not do displays for the purpose of display. So individual contact will just be, as I had mentioned, they'll be individual, and it'll be up to you and your contact and who will be behind the literal manifestation, the facilitation of this arrangement. There are different races and different species that are involved with the Envoy program. So do keep in mind that your contact experience may not be about your family or your contact coming here. It may be you going to meet them. So we have been told that many of these physical contact experiences will happen with you leaving Earth and having the contact experience in a safe environment on a ship. Let's see. I'm just throwing some questions to him. So I asked my little how many. He said, well, I think it's more than people think. Okay, all right, so that's good. Anyway, let's see. What is the probability of the deep state launching a fake alien invasion? He's laughing. So we're just talking. You can hear us talking, by the way. All right. So how do you want to break that down? How do you want to break? All right. Oh, just this. It is less likely now, but I want people to be aware that no one can predict the future, even us, or who you call as us. And it's important that you understand that there isn't an us, there is an us, and that includes you as well. All right. Don't overestimate or underestimate the capacity and the capabilities of the deep state as they stand right now. And so it's like, as we've been talking about, like it's really it's playing ball. What table tennis? Table tennis. Right, with them. He says it's very unlikely at this point, even though this was on the table. It's a last ditch effort on their part to try to enact something like this. They may mess around with some holographic stuff. Now, they are capable of actually creating, using their own ships, a very dangerous situation. That possibility is still on the table, though less likely right now. Mostly because very few people will fall for it. There have been large numbers of the extraterrestrial contactee disclosure community that have been over the years. So, okay. 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 He's saying that many of the older generation who were given false stories, a lot of your books from the 1980s onwards, there was a campaign. So they, right? So they had, explain it in a way that I can say it. Explain. This, okay, I can say that. So the CIA were creating campaigns as counterintelligence to the main contact, physical contact. It's not. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Let's go back. Oh my God. All right. I have to say this. I can't. So what do you want to say about that? Let's break this down into cohesive. He's like, the plan was I know he just said semyasi. Please don't bring two people in. Like semyasi. The plan was after the Roswell MJ-12 incidents to continue the momentum of citizens seeing flying saucers and to have physical contact occur then because it was safe and we could do it. So the plan then, which of course we were home, right? And we were, so both of us were not a part of this at this time, right? We were home, life of Riley. Okay. So but the plan for the different councils and federations, there are more than one. And this is what Semyasi was going to be doing. So the plan was to, at this time, and the 1950s and 60s and 70s, to begin full disclosure using selected contactees who were starseeds and envoys at that time to promote and to travel as they did around the country and around the world. I'm just going to mention, so this was the time of the mass contacts, right? So you're Adamski, you're Van Tassel, you're Howard Menger, you're Billy Meyer, the mass contacts that occurred in Brazil, Germany, Spain, Italy. This was going to be disclosure at that time. Okay. That was the plan. All right. So this rattled the agenda of the CIA and the Nazi programs that were being pressed through your governments and your military, what they were calling the industrial military complex. So these programs were running scared at this time. And our missions were doing very well. Unfortunately, the intelligence wings of these dark organizations, which you need to understand are interstellar. Nothing that happens on Earth is just on Earth, although now it may be interdimensional, but the deep state has been largely severed from any extraterrestrial assistance. Okay, so let's go back. Okay. During this time frame that we were talking about, 70s, 80s, right? Okay. The intelligence communities began to formulate increasingly successful PSYOP plans that were counterintelligences to what we were trying to disseminate on the planet. Sadly, humanity at this time, we were able to influence significantly. However, these counter movements by these intelligence agencies were so intense, so hard-hitting, and so powerful that they usurped the ground we had gained. And then, because people were receptive to extraterrestrial, my leg fell asleep. Sorry about that. Sorry. All right. Let me get back in. It's like, now he's just like, I was, don't do that because that makes me click out. Wait. Let's go back to what the intelligence agencies did in the 1980s was, again, to discredit not only all of the operatives that we were using here that you are familiar with, but also to discredit anyone that started to come forward. This goes back, he says, back even to the 1940s. But their discreditation campaign was highly successful because it was so hard-hitting. They used all their guns to make sure that anyone who tried to step forward was made a fool, a tinfoil hat person. So these agencies took over the media in the 80s predominantly, and they created false contact experiences. And I'm asking, is this gray technology? Yeah, some of it is gray technology. Some of it was also reptilian. Some of it involved shapeshifters, but a lot of it involved the abductions and also holographic type influences so that people would believe they were in contact with benevolent off-planet extraterrestrials, aliens, when they were not, although they were in contact with regressive or negative extraterrestrials and also in contact with some of the psychological operations crafted by this alliance between the Earth industrial military complex and these other extraterrestrials who were interested in maintaining and augmenting interstellar trade and the use of the resources on this planet. So many of your books that were released in the 1980s that rose to fame fairly easily, many of your contactees in the 1980s who were writing these books and who expressed that they were having very open contact and channeling with extraterrestrials, which largely, if they were correct, would have been suppressed. This is what you need to understand. Those people who were having real contact with benevolent extraterrestrials during this time period were heavily suppressed. You would not hear from them. I'm saying Alex Collier, and he's saying, no, Alex Collier did have contact and understand that. They were assisting Alex Collier in getting his words out, but he was heavily attacked. So yes, we want to be clear here. I'm just going to be clear. He wants to be clear as well. That yes, Alex Collier did have contact during this period. There were real people having real contact during this period that stepped forward, but they were heavily attacked. Those people who stepped forward as channels or contactees that were not heavily attacked were under the control of the complex, your counterintelligence complex. Many of your books that gained popularity in the New Age movement were promoted and crafted by the counterintelligence agencies. So there were many people in the 1980s, especially, who gained fame by contacting benevolent extraterrestrials. They were not in contact with benevolent extraterrestrials. They were fooled. Okay. So I'm going to go back now. Our question was, so he says, yes. Had the deep state launched a fake alien invasion in the 1980s, they would have been successful. It is highly unlikely now that they would be successful in launching one of these fake blue beam type invasions. So I think we, yes. All right. So, okay. Envoys are still under attack. This one. So this, yes. So yes, why? Yeah. Great. Yes, and all right. Why is that? It's a layered answer. One, because the operatives of these contractors, the agents of the deep state, are still there. They haven't, because we don't, it has not been pushed out yet, as you can see around you. As he's saying, as I always say, as you look out the window, what do you see around you? They are still in control. But we don't want to mean, it is a shaky control. So the increase in attacks right now are because their control, their power, their influence over society is being fractured. So they are trying to maintain any piece of control that they still have. Envoys have to understand that they need to be silenced. And this goes back to some of the contact question, the first question that we had about contact. They don't want contact because that collapses their power more and more and more. He says, you need to understand that the majority of people living on this planet are very aware of life on other planets. They are very aware. And even if some may question this on the surface, he says, don't think that's necessarily the case. Most of the humans on this planet are open and ready for being interstellar. It is the deep state that doesn't want this to happen because it is the end of their power structure here, and it would begin to collapse the strongholds they have on other planets. So envoys are being especially targeted at this time by the enemy for the obvious purpose of weakening us. He said, that's not going to happen. And I understand, well, you were targeted. He was also targeted. Extraterrestrials were also targeted. I understand the weight of these events on you. And there are methods being put into place. There is protection being put in place by your allies. So request assistance in this. Request assistance amongst each other. There are many of you down here. That is your purpose, as a matter of fact, for why you came down here. So not every envoy is going to be able to lift, as you always say, these chips or these implants from you. That is not everyone in a military has the same job. But there are people amongst you that came down here as operatives who have the skills, and they are remembering their skills. So people, I mean, okay, so wait, so you ask why you do not have your powers right now. You always had your powers. It isn't for us to give you your powers. Those are your powers. When you ask us to give you your powers, it is basically asking us to learn how to ride a bike for you. You have to learn how to ride the bike yourself. So all of these tools and all of these skill sets you already have. They are there. You just have to have access to them, which is what you will do. Understand as well that it is these skills, these tools, these powers, these abilities that you have, which oftentimes surpass us, that you look up to. Firstly, you have to stop looking up to others. We operate together on the same playing field. Yes, each one of us has different powers and different abilities, and that's the whole point. So once you begin to understand that the reason that you are attacked, the reason that you have been brutalized by these enemies, by the enemy, is because you have these powers that they tried to weaponize. And yes, they were successful sometimes, but that is war. But you still have your powers, even if the enemy was successful in acquiring some of them, in weaponizing some of them. They didn't take it away from you. You still have access to them. And you will retrieve and augment and experience and understand these powers. This is a personal level, though, depending on the safety of you at this time or at the coming months' times in beginning to become aware. And this will happen to you personally from within. Your ability to become aware of your powers and how much of those powers it is safe for you to access and utilize at that time will be up to you. Okay, so dead air here, Span. Okay. Okay. Why are the envoys still under attack? He says, partially of what I just said. Because they don't want you to access your powers. They want you to be afraid of accessing your powers. They want you to be afraid of understanding what you can do. And this fear is not fake, right? This isn't a matter of you. This is okay. This is a matter of you being prudent. Okay. Wait, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to like tie this in. Okay. You know how much you can handle. And you know that when you come into more of your abilities, that when you simply acknowledge these abilities, when you step forward, you will be attacked. And part of being in this military campaign is understanding and evaluating just how much you should be risking at what time. This is the complexity of any military maneuver. Do you want to talk about that? You just section it off. Okay, he's going to do it. I was trained as a soldier, and I requested to come down here to Earth to assist you, to be with you here. And we were deployed. How do you want to? Okay. Okay, he's trying. So is it for the evacuation? Okay. So there was a hard push into what you call it, we see the dumps. Okay. There was a hard push to knock down the resistance, the dark military that were operating on these different layers in the DUMS across the globe. So I was involved in different operations. You were in, okay, CISA, Switzerland, United States, well, and we led military maneuvers deep underground into these structures. All of us had different talents and abilities in these military operations, but what I'm trying to say is that you have the capacity, you understand your capacities, you have the weapons, you have the tools at your disposal, you have some pre-planning foresight as to how the operation is going to be not only enacted, but also what is to be expected. So we already have an understanding of how the missions will be completed. But the mission can't be actively created or manifested or undertaken in a precognition event. It must be physically 4D, as you call it, 3D, as you call it, enacted here. So the actual fighting was real. And though we fight together as a squadron, as a battalion, as a team, every one of us was in danger. This is the analogy I want to bring forward for you, that it's not safe. It never was safe. But that you, as an individual soldier in this operation, when the battle is being fought, which it is now, and your battle is on many dimensions, both physical as well as in the astral fields, this is a multi-dimensional war. And each one of you are, as a soldier, encapsulated in your own battle, yet woven together. So just as in an actual battle with weaponry, each soldier in that situation is in danger. And while we try to protect each other as we move forward in that particular mission, there are casualties. So every soldier who is fighting in a war faces the real possibility of danger. And that applies to each one of you, the envoys, fighting, in your case, oftentimes every day, many battles in a week, in a month. Though you don't fight alone, you do fight alone. And he said, I'm referring again to the analogy I just showed you. You need to value and make your own decision as to how far and how quickly you express your power and the mission that you are currently unfurling, fighting here on this planet. So I want to go back to the question of why are the envoys still being attacked? Well, I want to remind you that there are certain envoys amongst you whose role here is to assist in mitigating this, to assist in removing implants, to assist in removing the connections between you and the enemy. You also have to tell your handlers, your agents, your benevolent handlers and agents who are working for you to bring in extra protection, just as an army would do. When things get too heated, then you request reinforcements. Then you need to do this as well, to request reinforcements, and they will be given to you. But understand that no one is 100% safe in any situation like this. Okay. Okay, how much of the deep state has been removed? So there are many complex layers to that question. It isn't as simple as how much of them has been removed. Because you have to understand that the deep state is not just on Earth. The deep state operates off of many planets through many dimensions. And this also applies to the question of the envoys being attacked. You need to understand that the deep state has weaponry in different dimensions that I can deploy. And this is complicated for us to mitigate. I'm just throwing a question at him. No, he's not getting it. Okay. I do not know how much of the deep state has been removed. But he says what would be more pertinent in this situation is how much they have been weakened. You need to see it more in the case of a ship that is sinking and the rats are seeking the higher ground, the higher ground, the higher ground. At some point, as the ship submerges beneath the ocean, there is no higher ground. This is essentially where we are right now, and the rats will be swimming. You are very near that point where the rats are swimming. So this incapacitates, and they know this. The deep state is aware that the ship is sinking, even as they continue to find safety higher up the mast. I know because he likes ships. He likes it. He says they know that soon they will be swimming. And when we reach that stage, now understand that as these rats climb the mast, they are still able to bite you. There is plays in place, both on Earth and from off planet, to intervene should these rats attempt anything. I asked him a question about that. I said, what if, similar to the COVID thing, okay, what if, or has there been any discussion concerning pushing the Terrans sort of to the brink so that they more easily accept disclosure? will there be a will they allow the deep state to launch any kind of really nasty stuff? I mean, obviously not a crust destroying event, but something that injures or sort of is very negative, has a very negative impact on Terrans to kind of break them, to break the spell, so to speak. Is that in play? Yes, he says that has been that is still on the table. That it is. He's of course he hasn't been in me. He doesn't. He's never been in me. This is just sort of hearsay through the ET grapevine. Let's just say. Yes, that is on the table, and the possibility that it might be easier, as you say, to sort of force the Terrans to accept disclosure through events on this planet that are nefarious and that will be allowed to occur. I don't want people to think that is still a reality and a possibility. It is that as far as we know, like I was saying through the ET grapevine, that is a possibility, but not high up on the possibility scale. You need to understand that the different tactics that have been thrown on the table upstairs that really none of us know. Let me explain it to you in this way, that if many of the ETs know of these all of these specific maneuvers that are being planned, it would weaken the power of the military on the good side. If you want, and he understands, he uses the term good loosely. Because this would be questions for other days. And we've talked about a lot of stuff already about the GFW and these, so there's still a lot of regrouping going on upstairs, just as there is regrouping going on downstairs. But understand that we have the power, they don't. That doesn't mean they can't do bad things. I guess it's pretty much all right. Anyway, yeah, let's see. If any, like I said, people can write in the comments, and then Eeka can answer specifically other questions that people have in the comments, as you know, that he didn't answer or that you felt he didn't answer correctly or anything. When, if will envoys be extracted? Again, this is a case-by-case basis. There isn't a date in which envoys will be extracted. There are envoys being extracted now. There have been envoy extractions in the past. There has always been extractions. So the question of the extractions is something that we cannot answer in a group idea. There isn't there, and in fact, these plans, while there, yes, envoys will be extracted should situations arise where that happens. We do not want situations to arise where that will happen. The ultimate goal here is to remove the impediments and the nefarious corporate interstellar gangsters that are controlling your planet so that you can be fully interstellar. You can be fully interstellar now if it were not for them. So you need to understand that it isn't about saving you. It's about putting you in position of power where you can live your life in the way that you were meant to live your life without being a colonized planet. So the ultimate goal in these operations isn't to save you from catastrophic events or situations. It is to, it is to create, to open the door for everyone to have access to interstellar life. And what I want to say, what I want to explain here further is that if you are an envoy from Venus, that the situation has been, she's showing me like unfurling this carpet before you, where you simply step on a craft and go home. So it is not an extraction. It is you in peace, in your own power, without fear, without pressure, simply walking onto a craft and going home? That question. All right. Say deception. These questions will make it longer. I'm going to save this. Let's do a plan B. See why are they? Oh, I'm going to ask one here. Okay. Here's one before let's. No, I know what's a negative one. No, that's a negative. That's a negative one. You answered that already about the activation. You know, I'm going to save these for a second interview. Let's end with something. Let's end with something nice. A coffee, right? Let's end with something nice. I want to express this very strongly that you are not forgotten by your families, that your families are fighting for you. And you need to look at yourself now as the catalyst to great change, not only here on Earth, but that you are the catalyst to great reformation, to great, as you call them, the awakening on the ships upstairs, through your family and through your own operations, through you when you go upstairs onto the ships. The love that your family has for you is the catalyst, is the driving force to change. And your family and you, the both of you working together, us all working together, are changing and evolving a lot of the, he's showing me this like a cement, the cemented, right? So how do you want to, don't do that because I have to describe what you're trying to, let me just quickly say that. All right. So he's saying that upstairs was like a big cement block. There wasn't any thinking. There wasn't any movement. It was like an old-fashioned, unchanging canon of loops of the same thing, of people drowning in their own senses of ideology, philosophy, of ways of doing things that had for millennia been obsolete. I didn't understand any of this, and I didn't understand any of this when I first joined the Galactic Federation of Worlds, as you call it, when my wife came here. I didn't understand. You should realize that I lived as a hayseed, and I didn't understand what ran these organizations. And I was confused. So what he's trying to show is what it was like for him, because this is what it was like for many of your family. I was confused. I was brainwashed. I was treading water most of the time, trying to understand what was going on. And I didn't have any information while I was working there. I was lost and I was worried and I lived in a state of anxiety much of the time, simply because I didn't understand. And this was a major, what he's trying to say, culture shock for me. But now, having grown through this period, and a lot of my awakening came from living here on Earth and from talking to you. He's talking about you guys, right? The Envoys, and watching what was happening and seeing all of the lies that I was told fall. So what I want to leave you here with, as we were saying, this positive ending, this empowering ending, because that which is positive is when you are in control, is when the things that were broken are finally fixed. Like when you have a flat tire, understand that upstairs was a flat tire. And now that wheel has been removed and a new tire has been put on. Now you can drive your car. And this is where we are. You are not going to be forgotten. And yes, when you do go upstairs, what you had endured, what all of us had endured, not just the envoys themselves, but the other ETs that were working in this event here, all of us have been lied to. All of us have been harmed. Many of us have died. And that will not be swept under the rug. When this, and not, okay, so it's not, these trials, these acts of justice are going on now, but they will go on after this war ends. The wars never end. There's always somewhere else to fight. But he says that right, the war here, when it comes to its conclusion, understand that all that you suffered, that we suffered, will be brought to justice. But right now, what's important is that we put a new tire on the car, and that has been done. And we get this car in motion. This is what he says I am referring to as this is what is referred to, that you refer to as kicking the can. The carrot dangles are over. We live amongst you now. But the can kicking, as far as this mission is concerned, is now over, because the flat tire has been repaired and the car will now be able to be driven. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it. There you go. So we'll do another one of these because there's too many questions, and I'm getting tired trying to compile what he's saying. So, this is telepathy. I do not channel, for those who are, I have never channeled. This is not channeling. We are speaking in conversation as we always do. And it's a mind meld. And then he shows me things and I hear him and I speak as he is speaking, but he's also showing me things at the same time. And I feel that if I'm just speaking to what he's saying, that I'm missing the real message. But that's the problem with language. See, that's why they've brainwashed humans to think that language is the only way to reveal information. But this is where animals come in, because animals are fully telepathic. So you can telepath with animals completely. So they put blocks in place to make it difficult for humans to telepath with each other. But through telepathy, you get full understanding of a message. So anyway, we'll get there once we kick these morons out, and it is what it is. But okay. All right, we're gonna go on with our day. I got stuff to do. I'm sure all y'all do. You're gonna go back to work soon. I've been doing some stuff. Okay. Anyway, all right. Cheers, and we'll see y'all upstairs.